Hello, this is Michael Wojcik with the Rochester City Council update for February 18th, 2015. It's actually the 19th now, early in the morning. I'll cut to the chase. It's a little bit awkward, and I don't really feel like doing a video right now because I actually walked out of the end of the City Council meeting. I was fearful that I'd just lose it with the council, and I figured I'd just, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. So I just walked out. Get to a little bit about that. I'm going to talk about 5 things, some good, some bad. I'm doing the video now, don't particularly care to, but I believe in the interest of transparency, even when you have some very bad days, it's important to communicate what's going on. I have, 20,000, but really an entire city that relies on me to, be a voice for them, and you need to know what's going on in my head, and it gets scary in there sometimes. So 5 items. First of all, I want to thank you for the feedback on broadband. It's been tremendous. I've been collecting names of people that are interested in broadband. You particularly had a strong response to, Mr. Rusk and Mr. Stavers' comments that broadband is not a necessity. I think you're making a very pervasive case on that. I have not yet sent out a letter to everybody, but I am planning on contacting everybody with what you can do to better advocate for broadband in this community. The Chamber, the good old boys, they don't want us talking about community broadband. There are too many people benefiting on the rip-offs that are going on in broadband and cable television in this community. They do not want us taking a serious look at this, but the process has started, and hopefully with your support we can keep it going. Second up, the 55th Street extension, which is a county project, but they needed city municipal consent for it. And I figured I would be the only person that was opposed to it, but it actually turned out that there were actually 2 people that were opposed to it. Nick Campion was also opposed, and it's just a financial boondoggle. When you hear that things can't get done, just remember the millions and millions of dollars we're throwing away on this piece of crap. Basically, using the most optimistic projections possible, a 2-lane roadway would suffice to make that connection for at least a generation. I oppose the current 4-lane, very expensive plan for 4 reasons. First and foremost, it's really expensive and totally unnecessary. Second, it is horribly unsafe. We are recreating the intersection where we had that horrible accident at 3rd Avenue Northwest, or 3rd Street Northwest and West Circle Drive. Same kind of thing. 0 safe crossings over a huge area, only 1 place to cross. We're setting ourselves up for another horrible disaster. We should be smarter. We're not. Third thing, our wonderful trail system that winds along the rivers right now is a cost-saving maneuver. The county is not actually allowing us to run the trails underneath those bridges in the future, meaning that we will not be able to continue our trails along the Zumbro River northbound. Incredibly short-sighted, very disappointing. And fourth, again, they're not doing anything to plan for how we can benefit from this investment in infrastructure and recoup some tax dollars from it. Instead, they're doing the same low-density suburban development, which will not fund the maintenance and operations of this asset, let alone the eventual replacement. Complete fiscal disaster, and like I said, I figured it would pass 5-2. It actually passed, or 6-1. It actually passed 5-2. So, thank you, Mr. Campion, for not investing in stupid infrastructure. Next up, there was a southeast development. Not a whole lot going on. Pretty standard residential suburban sprawl development, but 2 cul-de-sacs in there, and I simply said, when this comes back, I want staff to come back with a financial analysis because there were 2 cul-de-sacs in there. Cul-de-sacs have absolutely, positively no public benefit whatsoever. All the benefit either accrues to the developer selling lots on them or to the people that are living there, and they cost much more than regular roads to maintain, and they hurt the connectivity in the community. But because there's no public benefit and the supporting land uses don't pay for them, I want to see a return on my investment for what we get for putting this cul-de-sac in. And if it's negative, and I spare you the drama, it's going to be negative, then that should be a private cul-de-sac where the private people who are the only beneficiaries can pay for the operations and maintenance of it. Conversely, you can just not put in the cul-de-sacs, and I'm happy either way. But bottom line, I don't think the poorest people in this community should be paying extra to subsidize people living on cul-de-sacs. It seems rather silly to me, but based on the fact that we have 620 cul-de-sacs in this community, the message has not gotten through yet. So it'll be interesting to see what staff brings back for that financial analysis, because it ain't going to be pretty. And when do you stop doing stupid things? Well, today would be a good day. Next up, the gated community. Not a terrible project overall. I mean, there's some things like it's entirely market rate. Read 0 units of affordable housing. And, they know that gated communities have such a negative connotation in this town, rightfully so. They're nasty, vile things that they tried to come up with some clever language. They call it secure and inclusive communities, which sounds a lot better than gated communities, but it's the exact same thing. Essentially, three council members Hickey, Ruska, and Staver, we're in favor just straight up of having gated communities. We have 0 right now, and our comprehensive plan speaks against it. And, but it was just continued for 2 weeks, and the developer is asked to come back and take a look at a similar plan without it. And the other thing that I raised is if they really want to get credit for their connectivity to their area, they need to do something with the pedestrian ways. They need to do something with what I call crime prevention through environmental design. Mr. Bilderback taught me all about that. He was really impressed that I knew what that was. I didn't want to tell him that, well, you explained it to me. So, but anyways, that went forward. It's being continued for 2 weeks, and the developer's going to come back with non-gated community options and hopefully a better site plan that creates a better pedestrian environment connecting that neighborhood to the transit connections. Some good things about the location, some not so good. I think that came through in the split decision from planning and zoning too, but anyway, that's going forward, and I do not. I pulled out the quote of Dick Postier, and planning staff had told me about it previously, but paraphrasing now. But I asked staff to make sure I got it right, and what he said many years ago is, "We don't have goddamn gated communities in Rochester." And that's the language that he used in a public meeting to describe it, and I strongly agree with it. They can color it any way they want. The bottom line is they have an area where there will not be affordable housing provided there, and people living in affordable housing are not welcome to come walk through their neighborhood. So, Trayvon Martin, don't go there. So I hope the community continues our 150-year history of not tolerating gated communities. I love going to other places and saying, in Rochester, we don't have any gated communities. The the mayor referred to my thoughts on the topic as being stupid, so there is that too. So I fair to say that the mayor supports gated communities as well, which I think is unfortunate. And then finally, the thing that got me so upset that I just had to walk out. And if I was the Kutzke Park Neighborhood Association, I'm sorry, I don't even know what to tell you at this point. This was just flagrant in your case. We don't care what the rules are. The rules do not matter because we're the city council, and when we look at our rules, forget about it. We're just going to do whatever we want. The rules don't matter at all. And that is exactly what they did to you today. The bottom line is that we're looking at a project, not a terrible project. I mean, I've seen much worse. But in the Kutzke Park neighborhood, and the area is zoned R3, which is medium density residential, and the underlying land use is low density residential. We have a lot of history with this recently, and when there's a conflict, we always go to the underlying land use in the comprehensive plan, which means this is a low density site. Not only did the developer maximize the R3, which is perfectly permissible, and go into the incentive development project and maximize that, which means you get more density, but then after they had maximized the zoning and maximized the density on this low density piece of land, then they went back and they got a variance too that said, you know what, on top of all this stuff, why don't you give us another 4 units on top of that? And our criteria for variances is crystal clear. What we're giving a variance for has to comply with the comprehensive plan. This is not a gray area. This is not a matter of anybody's opinion. These are the rules for development. These are the rules in Rochester. There is no discrepancy. There's, yeah, but this. No, those are the rules that we are required to follow. And the neighborhood, correct, and their staff made an error. Staff initially recommended it, but when they caught the error, they realized the error of the ways and said staff does not recommend it. But in the end, the staff recommendation did it. So staff was not recommending for the approval of this project. Neither was the Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously. And, it brought up, the city attorney verified. This is a low density land use. They are trying to get a variance to take high density and make it even higher. That variance must comply with the low density land use designation. There is no gray area about that. And Councilmember Hickey was the first one who brought it up and said, yeah, but I like the project. Well, tough. Change the rules then. The rules are the rules. And in other places, we approve projects because of the rules. And in this particular case, even if you like the project, you have to deny it because of the rules. But in this case, they explicitly, deliberately, after being told by our professional staff and the Planning Commission and the unanimous neighborhood, they were told, yeah, they knew that this was against the rules, but they did it anyways because they didn't care. And it's so unfair to that Kutzke Park neighborhood who worked so hard on this. A woman there, 9 months pregnant. I was afraid she was going to faint. She was barely keeping it together there late at night talking about how important this is. And we don't even have the respect for that neighborhood to obey the law. Unbelievably. Just disgusted by that. So ultimately, the chamber behind the scenes, my understanding is the chamber was pulling some strings and, they try and get to the weakest council members they can get to, and they got to enough of them. They got to enough of them that we would just ignore the laws, completely make up our reasons for justifying this because we liked it. And, I was exasperated. I didn't know what to do. I'm like, I don't even know where to go from here, I told the council. It's, we're not following any set of rules. And, I was just about ready to lose it for the council. So I'm like, you know what? It's 12:30 at night. This is the last item on the agenda. I'm only going to get more angry listening to this ridiculous make it up as we go BS. So I got up and I walked out. And, there's no sense in me there denigrating some of my peers, but this was just a shameful act by the city council. And nothing will ever happen. Nothing will get better. We'll give lip service to, well, we need to address the process. Nothing ever happens. It's whatever the good old boys want always seems to work. And it's pretty damn frustrating. So just incredibly ashamed of the performance of the city council today. If this was the Southwest, the neighbors would get together and the mayor would rally around him and he'd veto it. But this isn't the Southwest. This is the Kutzke Park neighborhood. And, the message you got was pretty clear today. You just don't matter as much. And I articulated the hypocrisy of the city council on this one. Recently, 3 members voted against a proposal in the Southeast. This proposal was at the corner of 11th Avenue Southeast and 20th Street Southeast. The proposal was for a, 40-unit apartment building, maybe 50 units, but the floor area ratio, which is how we measure density, is 0.5, meaning if the lot's an acre, the total floor area was about a half an acre. That went down 4-3 because the people who represented that area said, we're concerned about the density. We're concerned about the how close it is to these adjacent neighbors. Well, take that same argument, and this was a higher zone land use than what's in Kutzke Park. This was, I don't know, commercial or medium density or something. It wasn't low density like Kutzke Park. Now go to Kutzke Park, which is actually considered low density where they're doing this. Now the project is 225% more dense. It's like 1.13 or something like that. So it's much more massive, and the setbacks are much less. So what do? We treat that neighborhood in a completely different way. If you think you're being treated with a double standard Kutzke Park, I want to assure you, you are. So I am so very sorry for the neighbors. I did the best for you. I'm sorry I just couldn't keep it together at the end there. I knew I had to get out of there, and it is a shameful day in the history of Rochester. So I hate doing the videos when I'm really down about things like this, but in the interest of transparency, I do my best to put this stuff together. Good times and bad, and keep up the good work on the broadband. We're getting the message out there. We're gonna find out, I think, very quickly that there are a lot of things we could do with community broadband, like cities all over this country have been doing, that'll make sure we have affordable access to broadband for everyone in this community forever. If we don't control the infrastructure, we won't be able to control that. So thanks again. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.